Hi, everyone, and welcome to the PathAble Pod, where we talk honestly, celebrate boldly, and focus on solutions benefiting the disability community. I'm your host, Burt Brooks, co-founder, CEO of PathAble AI. And I'm here with Adam Tyree, close friend, just spoiler alert ahead of time. I've known Adam since college, and it's been a long time since I've been in college, so we've known each other a long time. But he is a frequent collaborator. We've done movies together. We've hung out together. We've experienced the world together. We've worked together. We've done many, many things together. And he's always been just one of the most impressive people I've known. And I just, and I'm biased. I get that. But we'll go into his resume here in a bit. But I mean, this man has a master's degree from Southern California in filmmaking. He has his bachelor's from Montclair. Look him up on IMDb. He's incredible. And look up any of his work on his website, his Instagram, anything this guy touches just is wonderful. So I encourage you to check it out. But let's hear from the man himself. Adam, can you tell us a bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah. Who am I? What do I do, Bert? As you said, I'm a filmmaker out here in Los Angeles. So I do a lot of producing, editing, and directing when I can. And that's been my passion for a long time. Obviously, it was when you and I met, like coming up on 25 years ago now, which is insane.
And
Yeah. So just,
exposing our age very well.
I don't know. Well, all this
That'll
exposes
do
my
it.
age too. So,
True.
but yeah, so that's kind of been my jam, just trying to be creative with visual stuff. As I said, directing is my passion, and I don't get to do it as much as I would like, but I certainly love producing and editing, which I do a ton of out here now. That's what kind of pays the bills and gets to, scratch the creative itch.
Adam has worked with a lot of incredible people over the years, but we're not like a name droppy kind of group, right? Most
Yes,
people
sir.
would
I
be,
say Dave Chappelle as much as I can. I don't know what you're
oh,
talking
you do?
about.
Oh, okay, good. All right. I wasn't sure. Here's the thing. You don't say it as much to me where you worked with him before.
Right.
So I
That's
guess
because
that's the different
right?
conversation. Okay.
Yeah,
All right. All right.
exactly.
Then
No,
let's
I'll
go through
drop
it.
names.
Rattle it. Rattle it. Let's go.
No, I mean, a bunch of people, right? Garceau, Bouvet, Avion Crockett, who is an incredible comedian. I've been super lucky to work on a ton of his projects, a lot of his comedy specials and whatnot. And obviously, I have my frequent collaborators, Roy Ty and Delmar Washington and Kamel Alloway. Those are the people that I work with all the time because they are incredible at what they do. They're incredibly talented. They're motivated and go-getters, and I'm really lucky to be in their orbit.
But here's the thing, all that to put into context, right? For the podcast itself, you also just so happen to be a wheelchair user as well.
Yes, sir. Yep, since sixth grade. So that's, again, age thing, over 30 years. And I mean, that's a big part of it too. And that's a big part of my journey out here is, the fact that I am a filmmaker, with the physical disabilities, born with rickets. So I use a wheelchair, I use crutches to walk around for, shorter distance. But yeah, kind of figuring out what that path looks like and how to navigate that path of being a filmmaker with a, physical disability can be tough. This is not an industry that is uh that is incredibly I don't want to say welcoming, because it is, but it's not. The accessibility isn't there, right? You go on most film sets and there's cables and all kinds of crap everywhere, and just getting across the room is a near impossibility.
Yeah, yeah. And that's one of the things I want to take a look at, right? How does your career, and I'm including college in that as well, because we've obviously done the wheelchair experience everywhere, right?
Mhm.
In every venue, every area, it is an omnipresent kind of experience, but a normal one for us, right? Let's start there where you're Montclair, which is
Mhm.
for anyone who does not know, Montclair is a notoriously hilly,
Yes.
mountainy campus.
Not only that, it is. And that was a pain. And I, will be totally honest. There were so many days where, I would wake up in my dorm room, which is on one side of the campus, and the classroom on the other side. And it's like, how bad do I really want to go to class? Especially in the winters, right? With the snow and the ice, and just, they weren't on their A game about clearing that stuff in time. So, yeah,
too many people don't consider that part of it. I think
Mhm.
the not just the physical access part,
Mhm.
but the toll it takes on your
Yeah.
willpower, on your psyche over time to have to push past literal barriers and these innate barriers where everything that you're doing has this asterisk on it.
No, very. I mean, it's not. I mean, that's that's part of life, right? One thing you touched on that I want to talk about is something that I think about a lot is the psychological toll, and just the way that it chips at you, in little ways. Maybe it is a vanity thing, or I don't know, but just even like asking people what happened, right? Or people asking you what happened, and how that is a totally fair question, and it comes from such a genuine, honest place that no, malice behind it. But when someone sees me, normally not in a wheelchair, but certainly with the crutches, right? Because crutches evoke, you sprained your knee, or you know what I mean, something small like that. But just when you stop to think, and I mean, most people don't, and why would they? But it's just like, how many times has that person been asked what happened and what does what effect does it have? You know what I mean? When you meet someone, they look at you, and go, "Oh, what happened?" I just go, "Life."
Yeah.
You know,
I was I was born. How about
that is
you?
exact. No, that's what I say. Right? I default to just saying, "I was born that way," and I go, "Oh," and I feel part of me feel like a jerk for doing that, but another part of me is like, "Well, yeah, that's because you are the 8,300 person who has asked me that question in my life." So it chips
Yep.
away at you.
It does. It does. And I will say that's another thing you touched on where the clinical, the medical side gets conflated because yeah, crutches can be a mobility device, but what are they associating it with, right? It's
Mhm,
medical. It's something happened,
mhm,
something's wrong, something's
mhm.
broken.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
we keep telling people, no, disability isn't about being broken. It's about just
Right.
a different experience.
A different experience. Absolutely. Um, yeah. I don't even know what more I can say than that because you're right. It's just a different experience. It's like my body was always different, right? From conception, my body was always different. I was always gonna, lead a different life than most people. And as you know, a lot of the stuff I make, is kind of about that, right? My most recent short film, is kind of just about that. It's like, yeah, just I'm not gonna be able to do a lot of things people take for granted. And how do you reconcile with that? How do can you be okay with that? And it's a constant thing, right? It's not one thing that just like you come to some revelation when you're, a teenager or whatever. Wow, my life's just going to be different, and you're okay with it. It's a constant thing as you grow older and you go through different phases in life. You have to learn to reconcile and look at your life, the way it is, and still try to find not only joy and happiness, but how what makes you different makes you special. You know what I mean? And what you can bring to the table that other people can't because of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm going to tie that back to what you said earlier about how yes, the film industry may be welcoming, right?
Mhm,
Everyone wants to be part of it, but
mhm,
as far as, I think that's the floor, right? Where everybody
mhm.
understands that yeah, if you're anti-disability, if you're literally putting a barrier in front of someone and refusing to move it, that's its own issue, right? We want that to be the bare minimum. But then going further to say, well, yeah, there's a welcoming environment, but that doesn't mean it's an accessible environment.
Right. And that's, all we can hope to do is educate people about that. Like I said, it's totally understandable that people are ignorant to it. You know what I mean? You don't know what you don't know. Um, Yeah, so I think, one of our missions certainly, and it's funny that, you and I became best friends so long ago and how it's kind of dictated our career paths and whatnot, because I think you do such an incredible job of, championing people of all kinds of different, disabilities, abilities, mobilities. And a lot of times I feel like I should be more active in the community. But then I kind of go, well, I found a best friend who's going to do that for me.
Well, wait, no, no, but let's dive into that a little bit more because I
Okay.
think there's a little bit more behind that than what you're saying, right?
Okay.
I want to know a bit more about the perception, right? The
Right.
perception issues that I think at least I, from my outside perspective and from what I've heard you say before, are things that, yeah, you process, you take into account when you're making decisions on where you're going to focus and when you're going to talk about disability versus not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I try to talk about it as much as I can, if not in an obvious way or a way that's going to hit people over the head with it. But, just when I'm working with people, right? Especially with new people who I've never worked with before, I always broach the subject and try to make them aware of it and try to make, the production, whatever kind it is, whether it's post production, actual physical production, accommodating in some way, or even, like I said, just to awaken that in people's minds, right? To just be like, where we're on these pre-production calls, and especially if they've never met me, if this is my first time working with this team, I'm just like, well, I use a wheelchair, so we kind of need to do this. We need to be prepared to do this. Has to be this kind of set. And again, that just, awakens that in them. And hopefully that goes forward with them, for their life and for their career now, where that is something that they consider. Hopefully. No guarantee, but hopefully.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the
Yeah.
only way it's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
It's the only
Absolutely.
way it'll happen. And
Absolutely.
I mean, that's that. And one of the reasons that's so important to me is obviously because PathAble, right? Where are we starting? We're
Mhm.
starting with
Mhm.
employment, adult life, all of that. So being able to proliferate the understanding of accommodation is so important. And we were talking with Lauren Weischer, who is our one of our advisors. She's deaf, and she was talking about how being considerate, it's such a crucial part.
It is. And it goes so far, especially in, with relationships, business relationships, of course, personal relationships and whatnot. But just when you feel that people are being considerate, trying to be considerate, it goes so far, right? Nothing is going to change overnight. You know what I mean? Any kind of, whether it's my industry, the film industry or any other kind of, job industry, nothing's going to change overnight. But for people to, when you feel like they're being considerate, and that there are some steps being taken to move forward, it just makes such a huge difference. And it encourages, and this is very much a field, filmmaking, where the retention rate is not incredibly high, right? A lot of people come to LA and they don't stay for long. And I think, when you feel like if you especially if you are in the disability community and you're also in the, filmmaking community, to feel like there is some, progress being made because people are considering you or considering the people of, all types of walks of life and differing abilities, it means a lot. And it's encouraging you, it's encouraged me to stay here, right, for as long as I have.
Yeah, yeah. Now, here's an interesting thing I want to broach, right? So, one of the things we've worked together on was we worked together at the Matheny Medical Educational Center, right, as part of their
Hmm.
Arts Access program. Shout out to Arts Access.
Yeah.
And we helped make some videos around that, promoting the program. And yeah, I just wanted to get your perspective on that side of it because, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but it was kind of a new side of disability, right, in the
Hmm.
community and things like
Hmm.
that. What was your perception in that area and being introduced to that program?
Yeah. That is, such a cool program. And obviously, I would hope that there are more than I actually know about. I don't know if that's true or not. But yeah, bringing that kind of access and facilitation to people who wouldn't otherwise be able to make these works, but who have this stuff in them, you know what I mean, who are dying to get these stories out of them, is incredible. And I feel like that's the type of thing that we should all be trying to do more of, right? Because we all have, stories in us. We're all artists, right? I'm not sure how you would define art, but I think it is something innately human. And I think, every human is an artist. It's in what way they present it. So yeah, just to find more ways to bring that to people who don't have access to that, I think would be fantastic.
This is what we
Mhm.
need to look at as models for the future, things we can learn from and emulate so that, yeah, that consideration, the understanding can grow and hopefully, yeah, bridge those gaps. That's one of the other things I wanted to talk about was your experience. I mean, we talked about Montclair,
Mhm.
snowy, hilly. I mean, I can't tell you how difficult this stuff was to navigate, even in the small experiences I had with it, right?
Mhm.
But tell me about the USC shift of it all, the LA
Yeah.
shift.
So I mean, I'm happy you kind of all tied it together this way, because so a big part of why I wanted to come to LA, and I am not lying, and you know this, I mean, you lived it, but it's obviously, it may have been a long time since we talked about it, was the climate. I was so ready to get out of New Jersey. I love you guys, my family and friends. I have such, incredible family and friends. And I wasn't stoked about leaving y'all, but it was like it was taking a toll on me mentally where I was so ready to get out of the rain and snow. And I'll never forget the December of I guess 2009, where I was shoveling out my silver Audi in front of my house, shoveling the snow. And I was just like, I don't want to be here. I want to go to LA, this magical place that I saw on TV and never been before. Right. And obviously, you and I were making, short films and all kinds of stuff there. And I wanted to continue, whatever this filmmaking journey was going to be. So I applied to USC, and on a rainy day, I remember sitting there just praying I got into freaking USC, and it was late at night, and I realized that I didn't check the mail that day and went to the mailbox, and there was a soaking wet big envelope, which could only have been an acceptance letter, because it only takes one piece of paper to say sorry, no. I remember, grabbing that, and I didn't even need to open it to know that I got into USC. So you were working late, I think, coming from New York, as I called you. Like I said, I
Mhm.
vividly remember all of this. I told
Yeah,
you I got in. Um,
yeah.
and yeah, and it was, it felt like a new, lease on life. And it's such an incredible I felt, opportunity and challenge, because it was like, okay, you know, I'm going to move across the country and try to do this thing, but also I'm doing this as a person, as a wheelchair user, right? As a person with this disability. And how is that going to be? How am I going to be able to navigate it? So that I have been able to do it. I've been here for, 15 years now, is one thing that I've been really proud of. I think, just talking about things that I've been able to do since I've been out here, accomplishments or whatever, I think one that I really cherish, or that meant a lot to me, was winning that DGA award, because that was kind of like the icing on the cake. That was one of the things that made me go, okay, I can do this. I can be, I can, stick with this filmmaking thing. Yeah. So I don't know, that all kind of, like I said, tied together, and with being in this body and, living this life and still being able to, or trying to chase my dreams.
And I mean, that's one thing people don't even think about, right? Is how weather can impact, right? It's
Hmm.
I mean, it's the difference between going out and not going out versus going out and getting a little wet or having to.
Oh, 100%. Something as small as, and I mean, we talked about snowing, but even rain, you know what I mean? When the
Mhm.
wheelchair is slippery, when the wheels are slippery, makes it harder to push. And if
Mhm.
it's even a remote incline, it's like, how much do I really want this? How much do I really want to go to this place?
Yeah.
But no, so that's what it was just a happy convergence, where the thing I love to do is mostly located in a place where there's very little weather. Just, I kind of lucked out that way.
Yeah. No, it's and this is another thing I want to talk a little bit about, because business uh, so much of business is relationships, right? But I'd say film industry probably more so than most.
Mhm. Mhm.
Rely on relationships and social dynamics and any number of things. Uh, Tell me a bit more about how you've been able to navigate that side of it.
I mean, for me, I always take it very much on a person by person basis. Like you said, I try to surround myself with people who are empathetic and whatnot, but obviously I come across a lot of times people who aren't. In those cases, I am blunt. You know what I mean? I'm like, well, hey, well, this is what I need. So this is something we need to consider. And hopefully I'm doing that with the hopes that it wakes something up in them. And again, that's something they then take forward. You know what I mean? And hopefully I unlock something in their minds. I mean, and it happens all the time, right? I mean, where I see it a lot, obviously, photography is a hobby of mine. So I'm often working with talent who either don't know I use a wheelchair beforehand, or aren't really considerate of those things. And, like I said, I'll be blunt with them and be like, they'll go, oh, well, what about this idea? And I'll go, well, I use a wheelchair. That's going to be in the woods. I'm not going to be able to get there. And then seeing that, oh, that moment click, you know what I mean? Which is so something they had obviously never considered before, but hopefully I've just now unlocked a little bit of consideration in their mind, not just for me, but even going forward when they're in, any kind of scenario where they assume something about a person, or a scenario. Uh, and maybe they should, be more considerate to other means, or that whatever they're dealing with may not be, what they thought it was going to be.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe we can't do this photo shoot at the top of a mountain.
Well, yeah, you know what? There's something I always quote you from while you're not around.
Okay.
I'd quote you as saying, "I'm not going for a hike. Hiking's not a thing for me. What are you talking about?" Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I've gotten pushback from that, honestly, from the disability community, where you get people are like, well, it can be, and it's all that. It's like, yeah, but there's certain realities that it's, even if it's just shutting that off in your head where it's like, I don't hike, then yeah, you're
Mm-hmm.
not.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. No, I mean, you're right. I'm right, and they're right. Right. It's like, yes, is there a world where, I try to figure out some way, if someone really wanted to, yes, but is it as accessible as going, well, today, let's go hiking right now. That's something I want to do. Let's just do it. It's like, no, that's something that, I have to give more thought and preparation, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's what it boils down to. Like I said, they're right? The people who you're talking to in the community who will go, no, well, when you figure out, I was like, yeah, absolutely, you can figure out a way. You know what I mean? And if you want it bad enough, like that's, yeah, 100%. I would never want to try to make someone, feel bad but I go, for me, I go, yeah, nah, yeah.
Yeah.
It is not an easy enough thing, and I probably don't care enough to do it. So.
Right. Right, right. And I will say there is as well as the clinical call out that we talked about before, there's sometimes just the isolation that can come as a result of some of the
Mm.
accommodations. And one thing I
Oh,
remember
yeah.
us discussing was the beach, right? We
Mhm.
talked about the beach. Can you tell me a bit about that? Because I don't want to tell your story.
Yeah, I mean, there's that. There's the whole thing of with wheelchairs, like sand wheelchairs, which I uh when I was in, I guess it had to be middle school, because that's when I started using the wheelchair. We went on a class trip, and I had never seen one before. I haven't really seen them since, so I don't know if it's a thing. But there are wheelchairs with just giant beach balls for wheels.
Yep, yep, yep.
Supposed to go on the sand, and those don't look appealing. I'm not sure how helpful they are. And again, so I try to be as not self-sustaining, but as independent as I can be. So it's like, unless it's with my closest friends, right? When you and I are together, you're pushing the chair. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But obviously, other 364 days a year, I'm pushing my own wheelchair, especially if I'm not with my closest friends. I will default to them pushing my wheelchair. Otherwise, I'm pushing the chair. So when we look at something like those beach wheelchairs, you can't really, there's that's not a you thing, right? That's having someone else. It's scenarios like that. So I just end up shying away from it altogether, because if you're not one of my closest confidants who I trust and who I don't have any like vanity about being in the wheelchair about, then if it's me having to do this activity with someone who I am not incredibly close with and feel comfortable with that, or not doing it, I personally will default to not doing it, which isn't, incredibly healthy, but it's an honest thing about me. It's the thing I, know about myself, because I want to do these things for myself, to feel like I'm, a burden, and, all the terrible, dark things that people in the community shouldn't feel or shouldn't have to feel, but do feel. So yeah, circling back to the beach, I hate it.
If you've ever tried to push a wheelchair through the beach, through the
Yeah,
sand.
yeah, yeah. No, 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 no. You go about 3 inches in the sand, and you go, okay, this isn't working. This is just not worth it.
Which, yeah, those just become the reality. And I remember us discussing the
100%.
idea of like, oh, these rollout platforms, it can put a spotlight on you, right?
Mhm.
That you might
Mhm.
not necessarily want.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Then, like I said, that's fine. It's okay. And I mean, there are plenty of people. I see people that I know who there's an actor who I worked with in my last short film who is fantastic, and he doesn't have legs below his knees. So he uses the aids of what are they called? The
The
still
prosthetics
the
or,
still prosthetics. Yeah.
yeah.
He kills them on the
Yeah.
sand, right? He can do all these flips and all this stuff. And it always tickles me. And I love seeing him do that. And I go, yeah, but it's still sand, not for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a fun game I didn't get a chance to play it. It was a social media thing I came up with, but maybe we can discuss where is it disability or is it poverty? It's a fun
No,
game to play.
woof, woof.
Right? Where I let's just isolate it to we talk about not we, I mean people in general talk about this idea of like the pink tax, the girl tax of things and items, but the disability tax is a real thing. And I'm just curious what your perspective has been and what your experience has been with the disability tax. Let's just take parking, for
Okay.
example, right? Parking in LA, notoriously expensive and
Hmm. Hmm.
inaccessible in many ways here and there.
Even the best of us will get invited somewhere in LA and say, I'm not going if the parking's not good. So that's just like the floor, right? But if there's anything, and this is, we're talking, about the disability tax, but I it's one of the few spots where you're just like extremely blessed to have a handicap parking placard is because it makes parking better. There are so many like neighborhoods around LA where, you know what I mean? It's just like, oh, you need a permit to, be able to park here unless you have a placard, then you can park here anyway. So,
And
that those are one of the few times where I feel really special and I'm really thankful for that. But in general, yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It also feels like there are obviously there are so many different kinds of reasons for why someone may have a placard, right? All kinds of whether it's visible or not to people, what what reason you may have for needing the placard, which means there is an abundance of people with a placard and very few spaces. So you'll go to a Trader Joe's that has two handicap parking spaces and it's like, well, I'm never going to get in here. In those scenarios, you kind of you have to deal. But no, I mean the tax is real, man. And like I said, in so many different ways. That's why I asked you to kind of
well,
hone in on
let's
that.
isolate it to your wheelchair alone, right?
Sure.
In terms of the pay, your expenses around the wheelchair.
Hmm.
And I'll take it even further, right? Let's just isolate it to time, because
Hmm.
time is money, as we all know,
Hmm.
right? The
Hmm.
disability tax that comes along with the time it takes extra that, someone else, it might not take them as long, right? To have to drive around and find the right space, get from one point A to the point B.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, I mean, like just in general, that right, like you said, time is a big thing, right? And I kind of uh had to take a moment there because that's something that again it's all just about awakening people to be more considerate is there are so many things where someone asks me to do something or okay, here's the thing. I love to be early, right? In everything, in everywhere. I love to be early, and a big part of that is I'll call back is the disability tax. What if the parking isn't good? It takes me longer to do little things. You know what I mean? You may be able to run up to the store or whatever and grab something. If I'm producing something, right, and a PA isn't available, and I need to go get it, I'll tell my director or whoever. It's like, I of course well, I'm gonna do it. It's gonna take me longer. You know what I mean? That's just a reality of the thing, right? Just because I'm not gonna be able to double park in front of the store, run in and run out. I have to, find the parking space and get out of the chair, did it, and didn't, all those things. Yeah. So, like I said, in everything there is a disability tax, whether it be time, money, and time is money. Yeah. So that's always just something to be accounted for. And again, like I said, it's just about being open and honest and getting people to be considerate about that. A lot of me and a lot of the times I want to shy away from having feeling like I have to explain that. You know what I mean? Because it gets old. Again, circling back to the whole thing of when people ask, why are you on crutches? And it's a story you've told 1,000 times in your life. Um, it comes the same comes back to that with work too, where it's just like I will have to explain to people what the scenario is and what it's going to cost, whether it be money or time, and just hope that they'll be considerate.
Mhm.
Like I said, it's the only way forward, the only way to grow, the only way to get people to, I guess, to recognize what am I trying to say? It's the only way I think that things will change is by being open and honest and asking people to consider these things.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I mean, I'd add on to that so one of the things we talk about with employment and disability is the silly little things that HR will put into a job description, right? That might not be applicable, like lift a certain amount of,
Mhm.
weight or whatever have you. And there's a lot of bias that ends up keeping people out of either certain jobs or certain industries and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah.
there are certain realities there, but being able to create that systemic change,
Yeah.
it's unfortunately sometimes awareness and exposure isn't enough. There has to be a
Mhm.
stronger regulatory hand there.
I know. Yeah, and I mean, I feel like for a while there, I was hearing about more effort to make those things transparent and whatnot. And please correct me if you feel like I mean, the larger human community is making decent stride toward it. And I mean, obviously, passable, passable you are.
Yeah,
That's part of
we
the
hope
whole deal.
that's where we're going.
Yeah, exactly. But do you feel like there is as much of a swell around, employment, both once, people have the job and, finding jobs as there were a couple years ago? Like I said, I felt like for a while that was a movement, right? Like that people were talking about it. And I'm not sure I hear about it as much anymore.
There's people doing great work out there,
Mhm.
but it has not progressed, in my opinion, and I'm sure this is shared across industries. It has not progressed in at the pace we want it to, number one, and number two, in as broad as we want it to be. So the quality and the quantity of it are both lacking. And there's some incredible organizations doing fantastic work, like the Neurodiversity Employment Network and PA. Laura, who runs that, is just doing incredible work. Kind of the way she describes it is like a chamber of commerce for disability, right? That kind of thing, which I love. I love that. But at the same time, like that has to exist in order for that needle to move.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's a disability tax in and of itself that's not even individual focused.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it more, but to that, I mean, as far as the film industry is concerned, right? To make it more accessible and open, what do you think are the systemic kind of barriers that you think we might be able to address? Or if someone is looking to hire persons with disabilities for their film set, for their films, what are these kinds of considerations do you think people should be acknowledging and be considerate of?
I think general set etiquette and safety things is, safety precautions is something that needs a lot of improvement. And it can be really tough to run a set. You know what I mean? Obviously, I've produced more projects than I can remember at this point. So I understand because everyone's on a time crunch. Most people are panicked and, just hoping that they can do their jobs in the allotted amount of time that they have. So I understand why these things fall through the cracks, but maybe there should be positions on crews that are specifically dedicated to making sure that sets have better accessibility. One thing I think about often is I don't think I have, and correct me if I'm wrong, have we seen anyone who needed the aid of a wheelchair winning a major Oscar and how they would get onto the stage? Right. When you think about the Oscars and these elaborate sets and whatnot, it always includes, the most dangerous staircase you've ever seen in your life. So you know what I mean? So that's something
Yep.
I just always, even just something like that, having to see them have to consider that on a stage and a physical stage and a metaphorical stage, that big, I think would be huge, right? Especially, it's like, well, wait, do you tell the person that they won beforehand to get them backstage so that they can just roll out? Or do you want to go with the surprise, in which case they'll be in the audience and you have to get them up on the podium. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I think even if something like that was laid bare for people to see, that would be an aha awakening considering moment of I never considered that getting a person, you know what I mean, who's a wheelchair user up to the podium in the however many seconds, that they have to give their speech.
Right.
I think that would be huge, you know what I mean? And getting people to think about these things and hopefully, getting the industry to move forward and to be thinking about how little accessibility there is in so many facets of the industry.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there was a stand-up comic at one point, they were talking about their stage and they built a ramp that was $6,000 or something so that
Mm,
this stand-up comedian, who I'll link in the show notes, she is a wheelchair user and is a comic. But what I like is that the wheelchair is right. She getting up on stage the way other people are getting up on stage in terms of in
mm,
front of people there where you can
mhm.
see, as opposed to having to be shuffled back to the service elevator where the props are
Right.
loaded, the expense that's there, and then people thinking about aesthetics over function. These are
Mhm.
all the things that end up isolating people that they don't know they're isolating,
I know. Yep, that is very true.
which I will always appreciate that when working at Easter Seals, whenever we had an event, it was, well, we can't have it here if you can't put a ramp up to the stage, right?
Yeah.
Whether we knew someone with a disability was coming or not.
Mhm. That's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the kind of mentality I'd love to see spread. Let's close out with this then. Let's talk about specifically the disability as it's manifested in your work, right?
Okay.
Tell me a bit about, since it's fresh in your mind, right? Let's talk
Mhm.
about your latest short film, right?
Sure.
So tell me a bit about your process in the discovery, the writing, and then ultimately the directing, producing of that project, and how
Sure.
that what your lens brought to it.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's so funny because you said my latest short film, and I think that to that you mean the short film that I finished last, because the short
Oh
film that
yeah.
I've been writing for forever and I'm trying to uh finally finish is also, related to a
Oh,
physical
there you
thing,
go.
which is this is my vision, which is terrible. But the short film that you're talking about, the last one I completed, The Places We Won't Walk, I mean, it was born out of a conversation I had with one of my best buddies who is, my go-to DP, Jonathan Pope. It was a conversation we had in Vegas many years ago, again, just about, the accessibility of things, and how that conversation with your loved ones can be tough, especially if you're, we're all prideful people, right? People are full of pride and to varying degrees. And if you're someone who, like me, tries to be as independent, but you get to these scenarios where finally you get to a point where either you're going to hurt people by not being honest with them about your feelings, or you have to get over yourself and talk about your feelings. That was really the basis of that short film. And so, yeah, so that was one that I was really proud of because it was so incredibly personal and it was fun to make. I got to make it with, some of my favorite people in the world. And it was cool to see, as like there's a lot of B-roll where we go to specific places that are lightly evocative of challenging things, right? Cracks in sidewalks. Again, the beach, what I mean? Things like that, where I'm not explaining why I have these images in the movie, but if you know me, you know that why I'm showing this, again, is in front of uh, one of the producer's house, Kamel, who's again one of my best buddies. He just has the sidewalk, a tree has just absolutely destroyed the sidewalk. And there have been a couple of times where I've, tried to push the wheelchair up to his place. And I'm just like, I like have to, luckily I'm someone who can get out of the wheelchair and, can navigate around that. But I'm like, otherwise it's just like, well, this is just where the street ends, right? Because it's just a giant crack in the street. Yeah. So I mean, so the movie again touches on things like that and about, opening up and being vulnerable about those things because of course your loved ones, at the end of the day, they're going to understand and, they're going to be accepting and they're going to be happy that you told them that you're having those feelings. So yeah, so that project I was super proud of. And yeah, I was really happy that I got to make that. And the next one too, if I can ever finish it, is another one of these projects where again it's all about me, right? Just making art that that speak to me personally, because I'm sure there are people out there who are going to be able to identify with that. Yeah, so
Right.
that's kind of my last project and the project that I'm working on next.
Yeah, yeah. No, and yeah, no, as far as it's so interesting because we talk about, right, these shots of the beach,
Hmm.
of the
Hmm.
sidewalks. They're things that you can relate with and understand. And if anybody sees it and they know you, they relate and they understand, right? And then hopefully after the movie, maybe on a second watch, will understand a bit
Yeah.
more. How much of a role does art play in the education of our psyche, right? I want to talk a
Mm-hmm.
bit about that in
Mm.
terms of like, were there pieces of media that you saw through your time that really influenced you in terms of the disability side, somewhere where you felt seen in some way, and why?
That's a great question. The answer is yes. And with my old age, it's becoming harder to recall. Man, that is an incredible question that is going to force us into a part two one day because because I want to have an answer that is truthful and does justice, and I can't think of one right now, but I'm certain because I love art and storytelling, and whether it be visual, music, all of it. I love it so freaking much. It is my lifeblood. It is the reason I wake up every day, is to be able to either make something or to I hate, for lack of a better word, consume something that speaks to me, that feels like a truth, whether it be my truth or someone else's truth. So I love all of that so much. And I'm absolutely positive that there have been pieces of media, art, content, music, movies, whatever, that have spoken to me regarding my disability, wheelchair use, all that stuff in some way. And I'm just too old to remember right off the top of my head.
That's fine. No, that then the thing is then your punishment for being old and not being able to remember is that, yeah, you will have to come back. In fact, I think we should
Let's do
probably
it.
do our own little media review every couple months, where we can say, what disability media is out there and what is the response
100%.
to it. I think
Yeah,
that'd be a great conversation to keep having.
I totally agree. I would absolutely love to do that.
All right, great. Because we are starting to see it come up more with like Coda and Peanut Butter Falcon, like all these kinds of movies that are starting to explore it.
Hmm.
And I love when they're explored through the lens of lived experience, right? Which we don't see
Absolutely.
enough of, right? Which is why I love your work as well. It's just the fact that it is personal. Like you say, it is
Hmm.
specific to you, but
Hmm.
it represents themes that are universal to the community,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I try, right? Like, I mean, because at the end of the day, the reason why I make stuff is so that hopefully someone else can watch it. And one of my favorite things in the world is, when I upload these short films or whatever to YouTube and just reading the YouTube comments, and good, bad, or indifferent. But, especially when people just go, wow, that moved me, that touched me, whatever. I'm just like, see, that's what it's all about.
Yeah. All right, good, good, good. Well, then we'll end it here for now, I think, unless there's anything else you want to explore for now. But we can always,
No, just want to congratulate you on everything that you're doing thus far. And, the name of the game is changing the world with this and making some money and supporting me.
yeah, of
That's what this is
course.
all about.
That's
I'm
what I meant.
playing this is the
Bringing it
long,
back
exactly.
to
Yeah,
real
yeah.
thing. Yeah, because I mean, yeah, we want a lot of what PathAble is about is being able to take lived experience, be able to take this information, make it practical, make it accessible,
100%.
and
100%.
proliferate it. Right.
Yeah.
So you're helping to do that. I encourage everyone. I'll put in the show notes links to your films, your website, your Instagram. Please check out his work. I mean, I know you say photography is a hobby, but my God, if that's a hobby,
Mm.
then what are professionals even doing? Adam can't take a compliment.
I cannot. Don't know how. Yeah. So I'll just say
So
thank you and blush.
yeah, exactly. So as we do these, I'll just continue to make the challenge to make you blush as much as possible. So it'll be fun.
Good. Good.
All right. Well, thanks again, everybody. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe, because we're going to have Adam back on. We're going to have more exciting conversations about disability and really get into the weeds here, because we really want to celebrate disability excellence. And thank you, Adam, for doing it and coming
Yeah.
along.
Thank you for having me. Absolutely.